And we spoke to our shadow minister, the DA's MP who serves on that committee, and it looks like NSFAS is not going to be bailed out by Treasury next year.
It does.
In my ideal world, we'd have one united, strong opposition to the ANC. I like to say that the ANC has one opposition party, the DA, but then the DA has 15 opposition parties.
Oh my. Because I see it's becoming a trend now. If one becomes expelled or removed from their party, they seem to form a new party.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
No, I know.
I know Ace did it. I know, who's this guy from the DA? Mmusi Maimane.
Mmusi Maimane, Herman Mashaba.
Yeah, there's a lot of opinion in them. What do you think about independence?
Last year it was majority EFF. I'm majority independent who got elected, and I believe half of them resigned within the first 8 months. So,
yeah,
not a fan.
Looked into that. But before you answer, cheers.
Cheers.
Let's do this. Oh my goodness, welcome to the Lifestyle Lounge. This is the Varsity Edition, episode 3, I believe. Ladies and gentlemen, to my right, I've got an amazing individual. I've got the phenomenal, the amazing Mr. Tom Valtz. Oh my goodness, how are you feeling, bro?
It's good to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
How do you feel?
Good, yeah. I mean, busy last few weeks, obviously gearing up for the SRC campaign, and uni is also chowing, so
it's pretty intense.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Yeah, so, Mr. Tom, I'd love to find out the reason why we're here. There's a lot that we're going to talk about, right? Particularly student affairs, right? There's a lot that students are facing. He's, by the way, also in the leadership of DASO. So DASO is like the youth wing of the DA, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's the student ancillary of the Democratic Alliance.
All right, could you like kind of break that down to us? If like it's, let's say, in 30 seconds or like a summary, what is DASO?
So the DA has multiple ancillaries: DA Youth, DA Women's Network, DA LGBT, and then DA Students Organization falls part of that. So
even like a women's section.
Yes, so it's like ANC has a women's league.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Okay. So like ANC Youth League, Women's League. So
yeah, and then a students' body, so sort of like SASCO, DASO.
So the women's part, is it like a student part or is it just overall women? Because I haven't
just
heard of
women.
this
It's
part.
Dawn, DA Women's Network.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweet. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the EFF, no, it doesn't.
I'm not sure. I know the EFF has a disability one, also an LGBT one.
Yeah.
And the EFF's a young party already. I don't think there's such thing as EFF Youth. So
shade.
Yeah. No shade. That's actually respect. Yeah. But yeah.
All right. Okay. So that's what DASO is,
Yeah.
right? Okay. Before we get into the crunch of everything, we'd love to know you. Who is Tom? Tom is who? Why did you have a sudden interest to get into like student politics? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So I grew up in a household of journalists. Both my parents were journalists. My dad, an investigative journalist focusing on private sector corruption and public sector corruption. And my mom worked at Parliament. She was a parliamentary correspondent. And as kids, we weren't allowed any TV, but the very little TV we did get, I don't know if I'd recommend this to kids, was watching the news every evening. ETV News.
By choice or?
I didn't have choice, but yeah.
Right.
So growing up, I was always exposed to what was going on in South Africa, even throughout the Mbeki years, and I'd often be dragged along to work with my mother and sit in on parliamentary sittings, even though I didn't really understand what was going on. So I feel like sort of became embedded in my DNA was South African politics and South African current affairs. Yeah, and then in high school, in grade 8, I became part of the History and Current Affairs Society at my school, Westerford High School.
High school already?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I became chairperson when I was in grade 10, and I made it like my mission to bring people onto campus that would stimulate a conversation among high school students who weren't particularly interested in politics. So yeah, we brought people from the EFF, even BLF once. That was a bit chaotic. Do you remember BLF? Andile Mlitama.
Very radical dude.
Very radical
speaks
dude.
a lot.
Yeah, we hosted debates. We even brought Prof. Pakeng. So I got to meet Pakeng because we brought her to come and speak at my school. And just sort of, I was very interested in it. And I wanted other people to be interested in it because I felt a lot of people were very disengaged from South African politics. So yeah, that was my sort of genesis in politics.
How you started, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, after school, I applied for the DA's Young Leaders Program.
Right.
So it's like their training camp for their young future politicians.
Oh, because I'd assume, so the youth wing would be what feeds into the DA. So it's like the school, the political school.
It is, but they have a Young Leaders Program as well. Okay. So it's like a 1 year long, very intensive program that's open to all South Africans. I wasn't a DA member at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
So that was really when my interest in taking politics very seriously and perhaps looking at it as a possible something I wanted to do with my life. That's when that really started.
I see. All right. So we actually had a brief conversation about this earlier. Oguchi, so since you've invested so much of your youth already in student leadership, student governance rather, is it something you want to pursue later in life? So being in public office, hold public office, or just be like a public figure in politics?
It's a tough one because, yes, for sure, it's always, for a long time it has been the dream for the last few years, but there's certain things that one has to be realistic about. I do want to get
let's
that.
talk about that. What does that
Do you want to
mean?
get that degree, man?
Break it down. Okay, the degree.
Yeah,
okay.
the dangers of being sucked into politics before actually qualifying professionally. I think that's a trap that many young people fall into.
Yeah.
Is their political careers overtake their studies.
I'd say even the previous generation, though, because you find that you get very desperate if you don't have a backup. Or
exactly.
degree, where you end up compromising a lot of
Exactly. You
values.
see so many of these politicians hopping between political parties and
yes.
switching sides. Fikile Mbalula.
What? No, you mean Ace?
Ace to NDZ to Cyril.
I mean, actually, you know what? I want to find out, because I see it's becoming a trend now. If one becomes expelled or removed from their party, they seem to form a new party.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean?
No, I know.
I know Ace did it. I know, who's this guy from the DA? Mmusi Maimane.
Mmusi Maimane, Herman
Yeah,
Mashaba.
there's a lot of them.
Bongani Baloyi now with Xiluva.
So, is it like, I don't know. What's
You know,
your opinion on that?
I think there's pros and cons. It's good for our democracy to have political parties that, span a wide range of the political spectrum. But at the same time, it does split the opposition, I think. And it becomes a distraction.
It does.
In my ideal world, we'd have one united, strong opposition to the ANC. And instead, they say the ANC, I like to say that the ANC has one opposition party, the DA, but then the DA has 15 opposition parties in action, the EFF and all these little splinter parties. So, pros and cons.
Okay. Very interesting opinion. All right. So, coming back to university, right? It is interesting times. SRC elections are coming up. Faculty council as well. So, we'd like to speak about a few things. You are in student leadership, right?
I'm running for student leadership. Not currently.
Current or running?
Running.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, now the question is, we've got a list of questions, right? So, as the leader of DASO, right, or as part of the leadership, let me say, of DASO, how would you advocate for the rights and interests of students? Just plainly like that.
Well, I think a key part in advocating for students is understanding the issues that students face.
Right.
So, of course, the number one issue that we are campaigning on and the issue that we are driving is the issue of student funding, particularly with NSFAS, which is not in a good way.
Yeah, that's true. I'd actually like to just put in 2 cents over here. So, I don't know, every year it seems like there's protest and it's become such a norm, right? I don't know if the institution or just generally the system feels like it's not dignifying to protest every year because you can't afford university.
No, not at all. It's a very unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to be improving either. It seems to be getting a lot worse. I, along with my DASO colleagues, went to Parliament about a month and a half ago where we actually sat in on the higher education portfolio just to really gain an understanding of what's happening at the top, because we're so, we see what the protests, but we actually, it's good to understand what's happening, with the ministry and that portfolio. And we spoke to our shadow minister, the DA's MP who serves on that committee, and it looks like NSFAS is not going to be bailed out by Treasury next year. And if that is the case, it's going to be what we've seen with these protests. It's going to be that times 100. The students who are deregistered times 100. Very worrying. And in terms of advocating for students, our number one issue is taking the fight to NSFAS. Using our connections in the DA, our MPs to really drive that issue. I know with the direct payment system, the CoinVest thing, which has been an absolute disaster.
Yeah, I did.
There was a DASO petition. We're heading close to 15,000 signatures now.
Sweet, okay.
That's how we've been driving issues. And Of course, that changes depending on the issues students face. But yeah, that's one example.
Interesting. Like, I mean, so that's generalizing, that's what the general student populace faces. But I'd love to find out, particularly for you, do you have any struggles or things that you see as like a thorn in the butt when you here at uni? Apart, I don't know if also you face funding issues, or is there any other? Specific to
Personally,
you.
personally, I can't really say that I have it as bad as majority of UCT students. I'm very lucky. My brother has funded my first year of education. I have had to work. I do pay a portion of my own varsity fees. So I worked as a pizza delivery driver for the last year and a half, which was a bit rough. Actually, special mention, because I know UCT res kids love ordering butlers. Please remember to tip your drivers.
Remember to tip, man. Come on.
Yeah, man. If I see an order to UCT res, I'm like, nah.
Did you get tips?
Yeah,
every now and then.
The majority of our income was tips.
Oh, okay. All right. So
luckily, I'm not there anymore. Actually, no, I don't want to hate on my employer, but so that's sort of how I've funded myself this last year and a half. I haven't had to take out a student loan yet because I've managed to get by.
Okay.
So that's a personal struggle. I've never ever felt. It's never been something that's been clouding, like that's stressed my entire life out. I've always felt very in control of my personal finances.
That's what you mean.
So yeah, that's one personal struggle. Yeah.
To feed off of that, yes, I've noticed. So speaking of, we just spoke of the protests now, the funding. So whether we like it or not, particularly a demographic, the black students are the ones that are affected. Right now, I want to put it back to the student organizations. Right. Let's say EFF. There's a lot of black students there. DASO, I'd say more of a lighter complexion, white and colored. SASCO, black as well, I'd say. Why do you think that is? Why is there predominantly, let's say, white colored in DASO?
I mean, the DA has always been, throughout its history, which spans many decades during apartheid and post-apartheid, been a multiracial organization that's been open to everyone. Of course, we are, in a sense, DASO at UCT is quite new, in the sense that we had, during COVID, 3 years of absolutely nothing. So we have had to build from the ground up. And I wouldn't say that we are a white or colored organization. I'd say we have a very diverse membership. Maybe they're not as visible. I guess we don't have, in our SRC candidacy, we did want as many of our members to put their names in, but of course, you can't force someone to run for SRC. It's a huge commitment. But yeah, we're open to everyone.
I see. This is a question that I will ask to the other leaders as well, because I find it very interesting. You find that in the EFF, it's like only black students, and you wonder, where's the white? Is it a message? Is it the messaging, perhaps?
Well, I think the EFF's always been a very racial, the messaging's very much along racial lines.
Yeah.
As I guess they label themselves as the Black Consciousness organization. So I don't, I don't think they've ever really wanted to. I mean, the EFF has had white members at UCT.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I get. So if I can get a general feel, is not only the EFF we're talking about, just generally all throughout the spectrum, is in terms of the messaging, it just speaks to a particular demographic. Is that why? Predominantly.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that as the DA we want to work on, is that I've always said that the EFF's very good at diagnosing issues.
Okay.
It's and we often agree with them. Students aren't being funded properly, people don't have jobs, South Africa's people are suffering. That's the EFF's diagnosing the problem, A+, okay? It's on the solutions where we differ, and I think that's one of the challenges that we have as DASO is how do we get our message across to everyone and show them that we, as a student body, we don't want anyone to be stripped of a university education because they don't have the money. That's our challenge.
I see. Drawing it back. Also, before we continue, cameraman, what time frame are you on? Where are we? I know on the 15-minute mark we need to take a short break. Are you on 15? Oh my God, perfect timing. So over here we've got a family tradition that we'd like to do, right? It's a chili challenge, just to lighten things up a bit. So I've got a packet of chili over here. The goal is to keep a straight face. This chili it's not that bad. It's Pick and Pay. It's not that hot, right? Keep a straight face. If you're unable to, or the one that loses takes 2 on the next round.
Cool.
Right?
Deal.
Then we'll wrap up on the 25th minute.
Okay, cool. I'm quite good at chilies, eh?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm really
In
bad.
high school, one of my friends used to go up to us when we'd had quite a few drinks.
Want to take this one?
I'll take this one.
This
This
looks
one's fine.
brutal, man. let me look for another one. Okay.
Cool.
So we're drawing it back to uni. I'm going to take it now. I just want to read this
Okay.
question so that you marinate
Yeah.
something about it while you're burning. So the next question is, how would you ensure that students have access to adequate and affordable accommodation and transport options if you've looked into that? But before you answer, cheers.
Cheers.
Let's do this. Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that draws. No, you can't have me laughing at this question, man. It's a serious topic. Okay. Yeah, it's a tough one, and I think it's the same answer to how do we make sure that students have access to registering, not being financially excluded from UCT, because it all draws back to how much money is NSFAS allocating to students. And I know there was the issue with the 40,000 rand accommodation cap.
yes.
Yeah, sorry. And that's why it's essential that we take the fight to NSFAS. Sorry. And look at that. Look at ensuring that using UCT's institutional capacity, we lobby NSFAS to ensuring that students are funded appropriately, to
Yeah.
ensure that residences are paid and that, they're able to access that
Yeah,
accommodation.
that's a big issue, man. You know, especially when it's the start of the year.
Yeah.
It's actually painful because you find students sleeping in libraries. They have no place to go. You know,
Yeah.
so it would be nice.
And
I do have an idea, but after you, of course.
I just want to say the issue is not actually only a funding issue. It's also that there's a massive shortage of beds. There's not enough beds for students. So funding issue aside,
Yeah.
I think we've released our NSFAS policy paper on the accommodation cap, which I'm happy to share with you,
Okay, yeah, that'll be amazing, yeah.
where we've actually found that there's a shortage of 500,000 student accommodation beds in this country. The government invested close to £500 million in actually building new res facilities, but that hasn't really taken off.
Hasn't materialized.
Hasn't materialized. So it's two issues. It's the funding issue, but also actually building. We have a up-and-coming young population.
Yeah.
We have to be building new
That's what you mean.
facilities.
Do
Yeah.
you live on res or
I live at home.
private?
At
Okay.
home. Yeah.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Right, thank you for that. Oh, and the next one is in fact, like the national politics, I'd say the biggest guys or the big guys in the house would be your SASCO, EFFSC, DASO. Can I include like one essay, those guys? But what do you think of these other organizations? What's your opinion on them?
Which organizations, as in other political parties?
Up on the top two is SASCO and the EFFSC.
At a national level or at a student level?
SASCO over
Okay.
here.
Okay.
UCT.
I can't really comment because I can only comment on what I've seen
Yeah.
on the SRC. The EFFSC, I know there's been an incident recently where their SG failed to show up to Parliament when given weeks' notice and actually present UCT's case on the NSFAS issue. And I think the EFF not holding their member to account, I think that's shocking. I also think that the EFF is very compromised by their mother body, where they're very constrained. I mean, you saw with Lumumba on campus a few months ago,
Yes.
Where-
When he came to make the speech.
where, that wasn't hosted by EFFSC, but that was hosted by their mother body. It was their 10th anniversary celebration. And where you saw the EFFSC having been a pro-LGBT organization for many years, completely going mute when that happened.
Hey, that was interesting actually, the development. Yeah.
So I think that's always disappointing when student politicians compromise their principles to appease their mother body. So
Yeah.
that worried me a bit. SASCO, I've met a few of SASCO's members, and I can only say that it's been positive. I can't really comment. I can't
Yeah.
really say anything negative. About SASCO.
Interesting.
I guess other than our disagreements on certain fundamental political issues.
And of course, what do you think of DASO?
Also, I think we've done really well. We've had a tough few years. We're rebuilding. We're running for SRC this year, and we've really come a long way, especially this year, in terms of issue driving, in terms of growing our membership,
Yeah.
and being seen.
How confident are you about DASO taking up the SRC?
I'm quite confident. I think we will run a very successful campaign.
Yeah.
On social media, on the ground. I'm confident, and I think our message is one that will resonate with all students.
Yeah.
All
Right, there you have it. I mean, DASO is going to take it, is what's being said. I am keen to hear what the other organizations have. But then also, there's also another person that stepped in the arena, which is independent candidates. What's your opinion on them? What do you think about independents?
In theory, I actually really like the idea of independent candidates.
Theory.
In theory, it's good because you're not really compromised by any political label. You're able to make your judgment calls based on your own gut, which I always think is a good thing. However, we have an independent-dominated SRC. Last year it was majority EFF. Majority independent who got elected, and I believe half of them resigned within the first 8 months. So, not a fan.
Yeah, I do know Sasko's not a fan as well
Yeah.
of independence. I believe the FFSC as well, not a fan of independence.
So I don't think that's a mistake that the UCT voting populace should make again. Electing independents who aren't able to stay the course.
Yeah, I see what you mean. They bite off what
More than they can chew. Yeah.
English is not my strong language. All right, thank you for that. Thank you for saving me over there. Oh my goodness. That is what we have today. In fact, we'd love to have you when the channel hits 10,000 subscribers. We'd love to have you back.
Sick.
Otherwise, Tom, thank you so much.
No, it's been great.
Dude, thank you. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Bye-bye.